My job isn't the deliverable necessary. It's just meeting someone else's expectations. If you haven't at least attempted something in the year 2026, you are already behind. 5, 10 years ago, I could not have this conversation. I'm heads down coding all day.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicho. Engineering is changing fast, and with it, the definition of what it means to lead. Today, the path from individual contributor to engineering leader isn't linear, and it raises big questions. How do you shift from writing code to leading people? What separates a great engineer from a great leader? And in a world increasingly shaped by AI, what does it really mean to build, not just use these new tools? As AI becomes more embedded in how products are developed, engineers are being pulled closer to data, models, and entirely new ways of thinking. So how should teams adopt AI effectively? What are the common pitfalls? And looking ahead, which skills actually matter most in the next decade? To explore these questions, we are joined by Pat Clarke, an engineering leader with over 17 years of experience in tech, currently at Lumen Learning, where he has been at the forefront of building and scaling engineering teams. Pat brings a practical, hands-on perspective on leadership, AI adoption, and how engineers can evolve to stay relevant in a rapidly changing landscape. Pat, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
But many great engineering leaders didn't set out to become managers, right? What was your path from writing code to leading teams, and what were the biggest mindset shifts you had to make along the way?
Sure. So for a bulk of my years as an individual contributor, I worked at a very small company, very small, I think, at its biggest 17 people. It had a very flat hierarchy. There was no 6 levels. There was no career ladders. It was just a group of people trying to build things, satisfy customer needs, and ultimately, take care of whatever responsibilities we have and, pay some bills. Like that was our focus. We weren't worried about ladders. We weren't worried about climbing up, getting new positions. So that forced me to spend a lot of time, especially as I became one of the more senior people there, meaning years of experience building the things the customer said that they wanted, years of internal knowledge built up when different people would leave from time to time in different positions, not only engineers but project managers, designers. And so the longer you're at a place, the more institutional knowledge that you have that you need to share with other people.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening for me was I tended to be someone who built great relationships with project managers working in agency life. The reason being is I could, in the early days, distill the technical reasons why we could or couldn't do something, or why we might need to charge more to do something, but in a way that could easily translate to a customer. I worked at a place, thankfully, we had a very clear lines of separation. So it allowed the engineers to focus on being engineers and not being driven away in too many calls like I am today,
Right.
And just focus on the work, because that's what delivering something to the client and meeting their expectations is what got us paid at the end of the day. And so I developed a mindset where I could help empower others. And so when I came over to Lumen Learning in I guess it was 2021, I was just thinking I was going to work on a completely different tech stack. I was going to just be an individual contributor. And then within 3 to 6 months, I'm in the leadership position. Not by any design, but it was just, if I saw a need, I tried to help. I figured things out. I took initiative. So I fell into it. And a lot of that, it was, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no formal training, but surprisingly, coaching sports and
Right.
coaching youth sports and being a parent gave me so much, not expertise, but just experience and uh, repeated chances to do different things that I use in management all the time.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
so, and then you just build experience from that and you fail a lot and then you clean up your mistakes and things hopefully progressively get better.
What are some of the things that you go like, oh, I didn't get this. Like, I wished I knew this one from the get go, but I have a clear grasp on it now, but I didn't when I got started.
Oh, the biggest mistakes I've made is trying to get universal approval or buy in on things
Hmm?
when you know what the right answer is or should be. We all want to work where everyone's opinion is valued, where things are agreed upon. And as an early manager, I've always viewed my job as I'm here to help you.
Hmm?
But I was also put in this position not only because I have technical expertise or because I have a little more seniority or years of experience, but I also have demonstrated that I am willing to, I don't have to ask for permission for everything, or I can do things that may look uncomfortable. I can make judgment calls, I can make decisions. And I did that mostly through code. And then as a new manager, you try and do the opposite at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, not being afraid of making decisions when you know you are right, and avoid maybe wasting time and energy on trying to always get a consensus when sometimes there might not be a consensus, but it's okay. It's okay, and
Yeah.
it's okay for you to make a decision, right?
Mm-hmm. As long as you explain why you made the decision
Right.
and explain a little that went into it, because while people may not agree, they might understand the philosophy or agree with some underlying points, even if the end decision is not the one they would pick.
Right. I love it. So you talked a lot about there are many keys in what you're talking about. You talked about being able to create great relationships with project managers and other people in your team. You talked about being someone that communicates clearly, right? Understanding the business and communicating back and forth. Like you could talk to the technical team, you could talk to the project managers, to the team, etc. Is that, in your experience, what separates like a technically strong engineer from someone who can actually lead engineering teams effectively, or what else?
I think that plays a huge part of it. I think as an engineer, for years and years, we viewed the job as we're coding.
Yeah,
We're creating things with code. So our expertise in understanding syntax or how to create or use different types of algorithms. These are things that are all on kind of interview questions or they're part of take home exams now. And once you get past all that, you realize that's not really the job.
right,
Like for me, I don't know when it clicked, but at one point it did click. My job isn't the deliverable necessary, it's just meeting someone else's expectations. So I work internally and build internal systems that help deliver a product to a customer. I'm not actually building for the customers. What I'm building for is the product manager who, quote unquote, owns this project. I need to help them
yeah.
using whatever technical skills I have. And I need to help my team to actually build the things that they require. So it's just learning, oh, my job wasn't always just to do code, it was just to meet someone's expectation. And so they saw value in what we provided.
So, Pat, there's a lot of talk about AI tools for developers, but you emphasize learning how to build on top of models. What does that actually look like in practice for engineers today?
Okay. So this is going a layer beyond what anyone who needs to work with AI and using it in their day to day jobs as an engineer needs to think about. For years and years and years, we would build these big, monolithic, one big, huge, giant, messy application. And we realized that was terrible. And then we started breaking it down into smaller bits and pieces called either services or microservices, but taking a big problem and breaking it down into smaller, slightly less complex problems. We all do that in all facets of life. What building on top of AI or really building on top of models is replacing one part of a system that we would have traditionally built just using a programming language and writing out a lot of complex logic. There are ways you can build on top of public and private models where you're using a little bit of code to send data off to the LLM, just like you would in a chat interface,
Right.
doing it in a more prescriptive way where you can limit, okay, here is the precise input that I'm providing you. So if I'm using a web form, for example, and it needs to provide, oh, here's some feedback for a product that you may want, rather than going through some complex algorithm that some very, very clever engineer has written, what you could do is create that same form when a user hits send, the three form variables, let's say, that they filled out are passed into a system prompt that I pre-written, and that prompt gets passed over to a model with specific instructions to say this is how you can help find the answer to what this user wants.
Right.
This can free up some architectural space, but the idea is there are people much cleverer than I who are machine learning engineers that are building these models to understand and interpret human language or to interpret images or to interpret sound. Now that they're becoming less expensive to run, we can now build on top of them rather than write larger systems and larger functions to do the same thing.
Right.
And there are trade-offs to both approaches. What I am starting to learn and get a little more comfortable doing is building on top of the models. It's a much faster way of going about things, but where most of my time is actually refining how I'm prompting, what I'm prompting with, what are the guardrails I put in front of something, rather than spending my time solely focused on thinking about an algorithm or a complex set of business logic written in code.
Right.
I can hand some of those pieces off. And so it empowers us to do different things, sometimes in quicker, less performant ways, sometimes in way more expensive ways. So it's just a new paradigm in which we can start building things. But as models get injected in every single product that we're using and tools as engineers, let alone what every individual is getting thrown into their products, whether they're lawyers, whether they're working in financial systems, education. AI is slowly being integrated everywhere, and we need something a little better than just a chatbot.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
it's swapping one way of doing something with something that looks similar, but we build it differently.
How do you think about, as a follow-up question to this one, how do you think about balancing leveraging these models with the cost of doing so? And when you are prompting, are you building guardrails to make sure that you are not running wild on costs, etc.? How does that work? Am I making sense with that question?
Yeah, you are. And I'll have a good answer for you. And I mean a good answer in 2 years. But my answer today is yes, I'm trying to do all these things, but just learning any new skill as an industry, we're in probably a 2-year phase of still experimenting.
Yeah.
So I am attempting to keep track of costs, look at outputs, and I get some very good small results, but I haven't released much into production yet.
Right.
I don't have our end users ultimately using these tools because I work in a space that's very tightly regulated and there's concerns about individual users' data privacy. What do I have and do not have access to? And so it's starting to layer. Okay, I have finally figured out how to work with the tech.
Yeah.
Now I have to figure out all these other constraints and see, can I still use something? And I'll be honest, earlier today I had a meeting where with an external partner, and we're still trying to navigate those waters.
Yeah.
So it becomes less of a technical question and more of a management question.
Yep.
What can and can't we do? What do we have to be aware of? What do we need to know the answers to at any given time once we do release something into production? And I'm still trying to get over the mental overhead of all that, but I'm slowly making progress.
Yeah. But I like it. It is a trying to try, and to your point as well, there's stuff we don't know, and there's even stuff we don't know about the cost, right? About what's the real cost of this going to be in 2 years, right? We don't know what are the open source codes, the models that will do something similar to what we want, and so maybe we are afraid of the cost, and cost will be close to marginal. We don't know, right? Um, Let me ask you a different type of question. Data science is big for you, right? So, and AI seems to be putting a lot of software engineers closer to the world of data. Do you think AI is becoming sort of an entry point for engineers to start thinking like data scientists?
It can be. This is something I struggle with because I feel myself gravitating towards that different mindset, I guess. I
Right.
am not trained on anything more than remedial data science. I can know to make inferences. If you hand me two pieces of data, and if I can find a pattern, maybe I can infer something from that.
Yeah.
Just like anyone can. Okay, you show me a list of data, and I can make two and two equal four. There's a lot of gray area that I don't know, and built on academic principles, quite frankly, into running metrics. Or I'm not the person developing the models, who they work on these kind of points where they're tweaking things in a way to make things more and more predictive. And that's, I can't say that's all data science is, but it's a pretty big piece of it. So yeah, I think AI is going to pull engineers to that way of thinking. And that can be a little uncomfortable because, like anyone, when your job kind of switches overnight, or when the industry is changing at a rate faster than we've seen, it's a little disconcerting. It's a little scary, but this is kind of where we are. So it goes back to one of what we were talking about earlier. Okay, how does me doing this now help whomever I'm trying to help?
Right.
How does this help the business go forward? How does this ultimately keep me employed, keep my paycheck, take care of the things I need to in my personal life? And so as I kind of keep focus on that, it keeps me grounded, and I am failing a lot at being a data scientist right now, or at least a pretend one on the internet. But I'm getting more comfortable with the concepts. And if I can push something far enough along, maybe I can then bring someone in who's way better trained and more informed, and they could say, hey, I can actually pick this up and fix all your mistakes, but I see what you're trying to do. Let me take it from here.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
So let's think about the engineering teams as a whole, right? And your role as a leader. Um, What would be your advice for engineering teams trying to incorporate AI into their workflows or products? What are some of the best practices you've seen that work well, and what mistakes should they avoid?
If you haven't at least attempted something in the year 2026, you are already behind,
Right.
first and foremost. So in 2024, when ChatGPT really came onto the market, and then when Anthropic kind of became a household name by the end of the year, and then Google entered the race with Gemini, I was hands off everything because this looked really familiar to me. It was, oh, something has changed. The cost of something has changed. There's been a breakthrough, and now there's all this new stuff. I'm never going to learn or stay on top of all the new things. but I kept paying attention. Last year, 2025, was my year of just experimenting. Okay, I will finally use this. I will finally vibe code something. And then towards the end of the year, I actually took an accelerator cohort program. I sat in, and that's kind of how I learned how to build with the models,
Right.
build on top of the models. And I didn't know what to really take away from that when I joined. I just knew I can't afford to keep my head in the sand. Fast forward a few months into 2026, one of the first things our entire engineering department is doing right now is we are working with an outside facilitator that's kind of teaching us some techniques on how to use different tools in our workflows to kind of accent what we already do and then take it a step further. So, for example, sometimes engineers have to document things,
Yep.
right? So sometimes we have to write documentation. That's our least favorite part of the job.
Yep.
Yeah, doing some of the administrative work. What we want is give me a clear outline of everything that you want me to do and just let me go and do it. And I'll come back in a few weeks or months or whatever. What we're now needing to do is translate some of those requirements. And one of the experiments or practices my team, myself included, I'm part of this training, is we've been shown a process and a workflow to accomplish typical tasks that we would just do by hand. Now we're creating kind of specs or spec documents that can then allow a model to do things on our behalf.
Yep.
And so, what I recommend for teams looking to incorporate things is first start by using different tools in your development environments, in your IDEs and your code editors. Ask questions, gain learning on things that you're not comfortable with or that you not do, because engineers silo themselves based on their speciality. I'm a front end person, or I'm a Ruby person, or I'm a Python person. You tend to stay with departments or companies based on what languages you do or do not know, what part of tech stacks you do or don't know. So use the tools to learn about things that you don't understand very well and see how far you can get with leveraging a tool if you have a base understanding of how something works, but you don't know how to put it together yourself. And then from there, see, can I have an agent orchestrate all this work for me?
Yeah.
And see how comfortable you are with the results it produces. Because at the end of the day, it's sort of like being in school. I can have AI write my paper for me, but I still have to turn it into a human, and a human's going to grade it. And I'm in big trouble if it messed up. Not going into academic integrity issues aside, same thing with code. We can have these tools build code for us because it can learn from our preferences, the code we like, other code in the giant internet ecosystem that it has either trained on or has access to train from. And it can do a lot of great things, not with the specificity or the expertise that we have done over years and years and years, but it could get us anywhere between 50 to 80% of the way there.
Right.
Then you have to now say, okay, this just did half my work that would have taken me 2 weeks and did it in an hour. Where are my trade-offs? How comfortable am I going from point A to point B?
Yeah.
And that raises a ton of different questions, but I think you need to try and understand and work with the teams to say, what are we comfortable with? What are we not comfortable with? And can we afford to use these tools? You asked me about monitoring costs. That's the primary thing we're focused on now is everyone on our team is at least experimenting, whether they like it or not, whether they used it in their day-to-day work or not. They're at least experimenting and getting comfortable with seeing results. And then they're going to start judging the results.
Yeah. There's the amazing thing about this period, I think it's like you said, it's so hard to stay up to date, right? And you did the acceleration course and that helped you a lot. But at the end of the day, it's getting your hands dirty, right? It's really just
Hmm.
doing stuff and learning by doing. There's never been a time where more people are having to learn by doing, but also the I think it's the best way to learn. The best way to learn what where AI can take you is just doing, right? And trying it and so I love what you just said. But let me ask you just one more question. Um, there might be younger people listening to us, right? It's a tough market for younger people. It's kind of a weird scenario, a lot of uncertainty. They don't know really where to go, right? So if you were advising a young engineer starting today, which capabilities do you think will matter most during the next years, right? I know it's the million-dollar question, but traditional coding skills, data literacy, model orchestration, something else. What are you thinking?
I think understanding how to use different AI tools to produce things, whether it's code, whether it's spec documents, business documents, whether it's compiling results from data. If you can learn how to use the tools and extract a result that you need, you're going to be in a much better position, even as a junior engineer, than someone who has 20, 25 years of experience and who is unwilling to adapt, because you're going to be able to produce the results that companies need on tighter timelines with more budget restrictions, because everyone in the world is feeling different squeezes of different factors.
Yep.
AI is going to cause a lot of different shifts. A few years ago, we started to see layoffs in the US based on change in policy and the fact that money was cheap and companies overhired.
Yep.
And so the last few years, corporations from big to small have started to adjust for those mistakes. And now here's AI on top of that. Everyone is hiring someone with some AI literacy. It doesn't mean you're an expert or you're perfect at it, but being able to execute something with it will give you an advantage. Traditional coding skills will become important, or at least the philosophy of those skills. Maybe you don't know precise syntax, like memorizing a bunch of keywords in a language and what order things need to go into may not be important 2 years from now. And 2 years is kind of my barometer for when I see the industry as a whole shifting. And when that happens, it means other businesses who use these products need to update their tools and their practices, but they're not software engineers.
Yep.
They are now using the things that we start to build out now and have ready to deliver to them soon. So you still need to be able to think like an engineer, understand how a system comes together, and your communication skills above all else will become important. Okay, I'm a manager who sits in 4 to 5 meetings a day, sometimes anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of meetings. My brain is fried and I cannot code like I used to, but I might be able to kick off a process and then track the changes it's done and produce what was once 8 hours of my work a few
Yep.
years ago, what might be 4 hours. I may be able to still accomplish a lot of things, not necessarily without a ton of effort, but with a lot of repetition of learning to communicate clearly. There was 5, 10 years ago, I could not have this conversation with you, Mateo,
Yeah.
because I couldn't speak very well. I'm used to I'm heads down coding all day, not interacting with a human. I had to get my reps in. Like you said before, repetition breeds muscle or confidence. So just like doing something physically, that mental confidence, that mental muscle of talking and articulating clearly could make all the difference in the world. If you can understand at a broad level how a bunch of computer systems need to come together, you might be able to build them. But you'll still need to be able to communicate your ideas with another human who might be able to have the knowledge gap that you're lacking and take that idea. Okay, here's the extra 20% I can add.
Yeah.
And so that makes a junior engineer just as powerful as a senior engineer.
I love it. Pat, thank you so much. Thank you for spending this time with me, for sharing so much about your story and about your thoughts and about your experience with the whole changing profession of the software engineer. This was a great conversation, and I hope that we can stay in touch and do this sometime again, maybe in 2 years, to see how things are turning out.
I would love that. Yeah. Thanks for having me.